You are now watching the Media Musings program. This is a platform that provides a perspective on the news item called from the English newspapers and English TV channels. In the last 1 week, the controversial BBC documentary on the Gujarat riots has hit the headlines in the media. The Government of India's decision to instruct the social media platforms to ban the documentary has also been extensively commented upon. Some, as expected, have found the government decision well in order. They believe that the BBC is carrying on a hate agenda against our Prime Minister, and it must not be given any quarter to vitiate the law and order situation by exhibiting a patently biased documentary. Some others, as expected, have strongly reacted to the what they call quote-unquote censorship. They commend the BBC for not being intimidated in telling the truth. In between these two extreme positions, I find the presentation by Vivek, Katju, a former secretary in the External Affairs Ministry in the Indian Express today, is quite balanced and quite thought-provoking. Katju appears to have seen the first of the two-part series of the BBC documentary before the Twitter took it off its platform. Katju says that some parts of the documentary are no doubt offensive, and India ought to have raised objections to them. But Katju raises an important question on the manner in which our ruling dispensation has reacted to this development. How have they reacted? That it is the continuing colonial mindset of the BBC and its political masters. Katju says that by making such remarks, India's ruling elite itself is showing a colonial mindset. It would have been much better, Katju says, if the rulers of India would have treated the whole matter, the entire documentary, with utter nonchalance, with complete indifference. That would have demonstrated that we are a self-confident people, a self-confident nation, that we have enough trust in our institutions like the investigative agencies and the judiciary, that we treat a partisan portrayal by a foreign agency with the contempt it deserves. Katju says that in the 1971 Bangladesh war, despite intense provocations by world powers, a confident India showed its maturity and responded with firmness, but with an enormous sense of self-dignity. But Katju laments that this time India's response is that of a defensive country with a persecution complex. The diplomat makes another significant point. The BBC, in its introductory note, says the documentary is based on a British Foreign Office report on Gujarat riots, which is in its possession. The report was apparently marked as restricted, which means that it is not available for general circulation. The BBC claims that it has made full use of this restricted document in making this documentary in the last 2 years. It's very clear then that this restricted document was made available, was shared by the British government with the BBC. And since BBC is a public funded broadcaster, the British government, its political controlling authority, knew very well that what the BBC was up to in the last 2 years when it was making that documentary. It's a question to be wondered, question to be asked. Why the current conservative government of Britain chose to quietly accede to the BBC making a documentary that would show our all-powerful Prime Minister in a bad light? Is it that beneath the apparent bonhomie, the British ruling establishment is ready to besmirch the reputation of the supreme leader of our country? Moreover, why is it that the BBC decided to release this documentary at a time when the Prime Minister Modi has assumed the position of an institutional world leader? He is a world leader individually, but as an institutional world leader, as the president of G20. It's a question to be thought over deeply. If our foreign ministry has rubbed some nations the wrong way through its sheer arrogance, Vivek Katju says that these issues need to be examined sincerely in India's larger interest. I agree with Mr. Katju. Do you agree with him?